So that's, you know, that's the fun part, is just like tapping into those moments of when you see a movie or read a comic book yourself and you're like, dang, and you just challenge yourself to say like, well, what if I can
Lounging, son.
So welcome back to Creator Chat at the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and today I have another awesome guest for you guys. I'm talking to Sina Grace. You know his work from Iceman. You know his work from Ghosted In L.A, which just wrapped up, one of my favorite new books of the year. And he is launching Getting It Together, coming out next month, I believe, in October. How's it going, Sina?
it's there's a heat wave, which is, it's gonna go away in like a day, but
I'm suffering too. Yeah, it's horrible.
But otherwise, yeah, everything is as fine as everything can be. You know, it's a funny question. It's a good icebreaker because it's just a great way to be like, well, let's talk real. But no, I'm doing well under the circumstances. I'm doing as well as can be. How about you? How are you?
It's fucking hot. You know, I'll cut the bullshit. You know, it was 115 yesterday. That's insane, dude. I mean, there could be worse things going on. You know, there are worse things going on in the world. The heat is the least of all of our worries, I think. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing good. Before we got on, I'm kind of curious now. Before we talk further, you said you were just reading some comics. What were you reading before we started talking?
Oh yeah, whenever you say that, you've got to be ready to answer. I was reading Apocalyptic Girl by Andrew McLean.
Yes.
And then the other book, I actually don't remember the name because I was just diving in super deep, and a friend had recommended it to me and sent me a PDF of it. I'm pulling it up right now. That's why I'm not looking at you. The Magic Fish, which is from Random House Graphic.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been reading kind of like a little bit of everything right now. Like I've been grabbing some stuff from Boom, like that new Al Ewing book that Simone DeMeo drew.
Crazy. Yeah.
I forget what it's called. It's like, because it has like one of those like long like.
Oh, it has like 8 words in the title. Yeah, I know. I think
like we will not be dead until we're dead or something.
So crazy title.
It was a good book though. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, and I picked up Tom Taylor's new book at Boom, and I've been reading Mariko Tamaki's Wonder Woman. So it's actually like crazy in that it's a good time for, I mean, it's always a good time for comics, but I feel like now that I actually have nothing but time to read comics, I'm really liking what's in my stack.
Yeah, I agree. I think you know, the diversity of genres, creators, everything that's going on right now in comics is very exciting. I think you know, I still have my issues with some of like the more major publishers, I guess, in terms of what they put out. But yeah, I mean, like, it's what you were saying, Random House. I think it's awesome with Scholastic and Random House, and the whole YA genre has just taken off. And some of the books I'm reading from them, First Second also is another great publisher.
Oh yeah, whenever I recommend books to people who, like of all ages, not just necessarily for their kids, but whenever someone's like, I liked this, what would you recommend? I always end up giving like 4 First Second books, like right off the top of my head. Like my book club voted for Laura Jean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Mm-hmm. I love, what is it, The Prince and the Dressmaker, Bloom. Yeah, they just, I mean, like I haven't, you know, I haven't read everything they've done, but all I can say is from what I've read, I haven't read like a miss. Like there hasn't been a single in the line. And even DC Young Readers has been like, just like, again, everything I pick up from that line, I'm like, dang, these are good. Like the Shadow of the Batgirl.
Oh yeah, I love that book.
Yeah, and I'm like a Mariko Tamaki stan, so like, of course, like Harley Quinn Breaking Glass was amazing, and I feel so like, I'm like, and I have a quote in the back, so I feel like I liked it before everyone. But then there's like Supergirl being super, You Brought Me the Ocean, Primer. Yeah, those books are knocking it out of the park. Even Superman's, what is it, Smashes the Klan.
Oh, I love that book. That's like my favorite Superman book of the last 10 years, easily.
It's great. It's so great, and it really accomplishes a lot without needing to beat any themes over your head. I was really happy to read that one.
Gene Luen Yang he's a fantastic cartoonist. I mean, his Dragon Hoops is one of my favorite books of the year. and that came out from First Second as well. And it kind of, I had gotten the advanced copy before it was released in stores, and I didn't read it. It was on my shelf, and then Kobe passed. And you know, I love basketball. I used to watch with my dad and stuff like that. So like it kind of hit me on a different level of just, instead of somebody passing that like I looked up to, it was like he was a huge part of my life. He was always in my house, kind of, you know. So
Yeah.
Dragon Hoops, and it just kind of came at like the perfect time for me, like when you know, I kind of needed it. I guess it was kind of therapeutic almost. But yeah, I mean, you know, like you said, DC is doing good stuff with that. It's funny that those books I think are sometimes better than their mainline kind of what they're putting out.
Well, they can take risks, you know, they can take
Yeah.
risks and they're self-contained. And, you know, I think that I mean, there's kind of like, you know, I see comics as like there's different purposes for
Mhm.
each one, you know, and like, you know, like you can't do metal in DC Young Readers, but metal is
That's
like
true.
also sick and crazy too. And, you know, same with like, well, RIP Black Label. I don't know if it's still around after the bloodbath, but you know, even with Black Label, it's like a way to explore these characters in a much more mature fashion than, you know, sort of taking these like very formative themes and lessons that young readers would do. So it's all like, I think it's, there's an easier entry and exit point with young readers, which I really like. Um,
Yes.
and then similarly, like I tend to go for those kinds of art styles. Like I really like Tilly Walden, who's a big First Second
She's amazing. Yeah.
author, and so those that aesthetic appeals to me more, and that's like, you know, obviously more of young readers than say you're like Ed Benes and Carlo Barberi, who like are also dope, but like very very actiony.
Yeah.
Anyway, wow. At least I'm
Yeah.
proving my nerd it's here.
No. I totally get what you're saying. And you know, you're speaking of like the stuff you like now. I like usually I start off the interview, even if I've talked to somebody before previously on my side, I always like to, for anybody new to the channel, to kind of hear about how the person I'm talking to got into comics, what some of their comics were when they were growing up that kind of sparked that love for the medium. So I was wondering
Yeah.
what yours were.
Yeah, well, I'm a funny person just because I grew up loving like Top Cow books like Witchblade and The Darkness, and then, you know, Fathom, which is now Aspen,
Hmm.
and then I loved like cliffhanger books like Battle Chasers, Danger Girl, Crimson. Like I collected all of those and would buy 2 copies so I could cut up my favorite panels and put them in a scrapbook. And then me and my friends would compete to see who had better scrapbooks of better panels. Um, and I even interned at Top Cow in high school. But I think what really helped sort of round me out was I ended up working at a local comic store here in LA called Heidi Ho Comics, and
Mm.
that allowed me to just read things that were out of my sort of general like kind of periphery. And mind you, before all of that, I was like, you know, I came in watching the 90s X-Men and Batman cartoons, and I loved Spider-Man. So like I already had my sort of big two taste buds set for me.
Hmm.
But then working at the comic store, it was like that's when I got into Ghost World, and that's when I got into Optic Nerve, and that's when I got into like Blankets and Persepolis. Sorry, I'm like looking at my bookshelf so I can like remember these books that I dove into. And you know, that's when like I had an employee discount, so that's when I bought all the Hellboy trades and stuff like that. And so yeah, I just like love all comics, and and you know, like I think that's why I can kind of jump genres and jump moods so quickly and easily. Not easily per se, but like why I
Mm.
kind of bounce around, because I just don't feel confined to any one thing. Like I want to tell a superhero story, I want to tell an indie story, you know, and it's just about packaging it in a way that no one loses money.
You walk that line so well, because I was gonna like ask you, you know, like since you've got into comics, like you've done such a wide range of stuff. You did Iceman, you've done Power Rangers, you've done stuff for IDW, everywhere. You know what I mean? All publishers. I think for me though, I really love your slice of life stuff. I
Oh, thanks.
last few years, like I've really grown to like, I think that is now my favorite genre. And part of it is because My younger brother handed me a copy of Blankets, and then like he handed me Love and Rockets. I knew of Love and Rockets growing up. You know, like I read Wizard. They talk about it sparingly in there. But like I just never picked it up. I knew it was like a perennial, like you need to read this if you're a comic book fan. And then once I read it, I binged it, and like I'm like, this is what I like about comics. This is like it's the emotional connection you develop with a character, which you can with superhero stuff, but it's just a little bit different because you can relate to a real person as opposed to somebody that shoots ice out of their hands. You know what I mean? Since I said I do love your slice of life, but what appeals to you most about working in that realm of like the superhero genre or the licensed characters with Power Rangers?
I mean, you know, it comes from liking the stuff and also, you know, being someone who used to play with action figures. And I think I just try to go back to that place of being a kid and asking myself, like, what would be this, like, the coolest thing to see with these characters? But then I'm a grown up and it's like, what do I want these characters to learn as individuals? And then, you know, as a storyteller, you marry all of that by saying, and what do I want a reader to get out of me doing all of that? And I think that's what was really fun about Iceman was like, I just kind of was like, okay, like what crazy cool Iceman shit can I do that hasn't been done? And then I thought I did it. I thought I would do something new, and someone would be like, oh yeah, like just like that one issue that you didn't read. And I was like, dang, I missed it. But then they thought it was a callback, so it was fine. But it, you know, I think that was a lot of fun doing the middle arc with Robert Gill, because like when we got assigned to each other, I called him up and I was just like, so what do you want to draw? Because like I want you to have fun doing this. Like I'm having fun. So like if you're having fun, it's gonna look good. And he was like, I just really like X-Men and I really like fight scenes. So, you know, I tried to find a way to bring in kind of as many X-Men that made sense for the story, and basically wrote him like a crazy, like, what was it, 2-issue fight with Doc Hen where, you know, I just basically was like, here's like my choreography, but you can step it up if you see a better way. And he did, and he did some really crazy stuff, and that was a lot of fun. And it made for cool looking comic books, which is what comic books should be, is cool looking. And I think that's, you know, another thing too, is from a design and visual storytelling standpoint, like you can just do so much. It's so cool. The only budget you have is the artist's brain. Like what can the artist's brain whip out, you know? And I think back to Simona Di Meo, who was one of the Power Ranger artists, it's like that guy can just draw anything. So anyone is lucky to work with him, you know? And even same with the artists we had on Go-Go, is like, I'm like lucky that like 90% of the time when I work with someone else who's drawing what I'm thinking, they do like above and beyond what I'm expecting in my head. Because I lay this stuff out because, you know, as you mentioned, like I write and draw. And so I always try to lay out what I'm thinking, so that way I know it's like possible and I'm not a dickbag to my artists, and, you know, not giving them like, you know, fucking visual gymnastics to figure out. And so it's just great when you see, you're like, you think you've come up with a really cool Megazord fight, and then these artists like find a different camera angle or find like a different, like, it's like, you know, sometimes you just say punch and you think it's this, and then it's like they redefine what punching even looks like. So that's, you know, that's the fun part, is just like tapping into those moments of when you see a movie or read a comic book yourself and you're like, dang, and you just challenge yourself to say like, well, what if I can do that? Like, what if we can contribute? What if we can make someone say dang?
And like I said, while I love those that you've done, Ghosted in L.A. is my favorite. I love that book. I mean, from the first issue, it's fantastic. It's funny and it's real, and it's like but you added ghosts into it. And first of all, that title alone, Ghosted in LA, it's a fucking dope title. Like, I didn't even know what the book was about. I just saw Ghosted in LA. I'm like, I want that book. Again, the slice of life. What about that genre really appeals to you? I mean, I know, like I said, there's ghosts, so you kind of added the supernatural elements into it. But at its core, it's slice of life. It's just about real people, real emotions, real feelings, and stuff like that.
Well, because I like love people. I love the people in my life. It's such a goofy answer, but I if you if you meet any of my friends in real life and just see how much the work I do is like a a testament or a love letter to the people in my life, you'll be like, oh, this guy's a hack. Because, literally, like, that Ronnie character is based off one of my best friends. And there's so many little character moments that he says in real life that I'm just like, oh, I like that. I need to put that in something, because it's like, it just makes me laugh. And I just, and I want to make other people laugh, and I want to make other people, kind of celebrate just the weird little shit that reminds us that this is like, we're not in a simulation. We're just in this wild, weird thing called life. And it's, and I like to focus on, and I like to focus on these little slices. And I think comics are great for that too, because you can kind of zoom in and hone in and really freeze and distill just these quiet moments that maybe no one's even seeing, like, so I like to observe and report both, the quiet and the riot of all of this. And, yeah, I just, and I think with Ghosted in L.A., it was a great way for me to also kind of think about the fact that I've grown up in apartment buildings my whole life, and sort of meditate on your relationship with your neighbors, when it's like, you technically are all living together, but you really don't see each other, but you really know a lot about each other. Like, I always know when one of my neighbors is having a gentleman caller over, because like, I can just tell from, like, I walk up my stairs and I can smell this like one cologne, and I'm like, oh, that dude is over tonight. Or like, I can tell by her mood lighting, or I can tell by music, or I can tell when my neighbor Wendy is back in town, because like, there'll just be her like poodle's dog tracks everywhere, and like, she'll be fucking yammering till like midnight, and you accept it. Like, you're like, well, we're stuck together. So, but anyway, so it's all this weird stuff. And I just like to kind of think about it and focus on it. And Ghosted in LA in particular was like, I'm from Los Angeles. I was born here. So I also took the time to kind of just do some reading that I'd never done about the city and learn a lot more about it. And there are all these little things that I don't even think really they don't even like make it into the story as explicitly as I would have liked, just because I was running around focusing on so many things. But just like weird little bits about the city's history. And there's stuff in the final arc that I didn't even get to fully explore myself in terms of research. But the, like, I don't know how many spoilers I should get into, but basically, like, the cast learns that their haunted house is haunted, and the thing that's haunting the house, I wish I'd have gotten more into, but it sort of speaks to the idea of just like the city of Los Angeles's roots, and how Los Angeles has a history of like things being taken from people over and over again, and the violence around that. And I didn't really get to play too deep into it, because it was just like, I had to focus on the Melrose Place of it all and kind of give these characters their endings. But yeah, I think with Slice of Life, you can explore all of those things, and still find a dynamic way to do it if you put some ghosts in there.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing I really love too is at the back of the book how you called out your favorite spots in LA. You called out comic book stores, restaurants, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you called out the shop I work at, which I thought was pretty cool, Collector's Paradise. So I thought that was a little interesting, like, extra that you gave to the book, which I've never seen that in a comic book before, where it tied into the story because it's set in LA, and then you kind of like make readers, even for me, like, there's spots you called out that I didn't even know of, and I've lived here my whole life as well. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, well, isn't that the best part about floppy comics, is like giving
Yeah.
people something they don't get? I like, because I used to edit The Walking Dead, well, all of Robert Kirkman's books at Skybound, and I think we really the reason I really like Robert is, like, we both love comic books, and we both understand that unspeakable value of grabbing the floppy, versus grabbing the trade. And that's why we kind of just stuffed the back with letters columns with as many letters as we could freaking answer, because it's that thing, you know, it's that thing that just, if you really give a credit about comic books, like you do pour through the letters and read every single one, and or you look to see if yours made it in because you wrote a letter, and just shit like that. And you know, because Ghosted in L.A. was sort of, we only had like a year, and we were really just trying to get as much of it done ahead of time. We didn't really have time for letters columns, but that was my way of being able to do something that just felt like I could kind of add another layer and give people something.
Yeah, it was definitely cool, and I loved it. I'm sure others felt the same way. It was, like I said, something unique, and it, again, like you're saying, there's not enough stuff that goes into single issues that kind of separates it from the trade. I think Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, all their stuff is another good example. How they always have back matter. They'll have a couple letters. They'll have like a prose story, and I think that that's definitely missing in the single issues in today's comics. And I also wanted to ask, was it hard to say goodbye to the characters, and is it a possibility that you'll return?
Yeah, and yeah. So, well, yeah, so when I started this year, they always said it was 12 issues. They were like, we're going to give you 12 issues. We want to see what you do telling a full story, knowing that like you won't be stopped or canceled or whatever. I mean, of course, I didn't realize that you can still get canceled even if a publisher says that. But in my head, I was like, great, I'll have enough time to win everyone over and get 24 issues. And then about like 4 or 5 issues in, it was becoming clear, like, oh, this is a book market book, and it's going to take a lot longer than, you know, the 11 months or 12 months you get in the direct market to kind of win a complete audience over with a young adult series. So I had to make peace with like, okay, no, 12 issues is a gift. Like, why are you thinking you deserve more than that? And so I made peace with saying goodbye at around like issue 6 or 7, and just really focused hardcore on making sure it was like, you know, like I only have 12 bullets kind of thing, not like I can, you know, reload. And it was super sad. It was super hard because, like, you know, especially when you try to create some finality to a book, you then get to move the characters along, and for a bunch of ghosts, that's a big task. And then it's like, man, now they've all changed, and now I want to see what they do, and I don't get to, which is great because that leaves readers with their imaginations and them wanting more. And so, you know, the short answer for your second question is like, yeah, I would come back in a heartbeat, and I think it's just a matter of making sure that this thing sort of continues to find an audience and continues to grow. And that's why I'm excited that the second volume just came out in bookstores, because it's just such a step up, I think, narratively, once I move some pieces in place, and once we introduce the Zola character. I think she's just like this like hot, cool, complicated, dynamic addition that you know, also kind of sparks asking bigger questions of the, you know, the place where they live, the Rycroft Manor. So who knows? I mean, yeah, I had a great time. I loved working with everyone. It was such a cool book. So let's anyone who's watching this, please just buy both of the volumes. Please review them both positively on Amazon, so that way they just keep sort of staying on folks' mind. And
I will definitely try to help get the word out too, because I definitely want to see more of those characters. And then I'm also happy that your latest book that we're talking about, Getting It Together, is Another Slice of Life. You were kind enough to send PDFs of the first two, and I wish I had the next two, kind of, you know. I knocked those out, and I loved it, man. It's so I was hoping if you could share with everybody watching and listening what the book's about and how the project came about.
Yeah, in a sentence, it's very, the easiest description is like, it's a modern day Friends. My friend Omar Spahi and he wanted to work together on something, and we felt like that concept of when your friends are your family in your 20s just hadn't been properly explored in 2020 and with a millennial lens, and just shit's so much more complicated. And Omar was the one to say, I really want the main relationship in this book to be about, you know, a straight best friend and a gay best friend, and just sort of what their energies bring to that, you know. And it's not, and it's great because it's never about the like, oh, I secretly love you. It's like, fuck that, because that doesn't happen. Like it gets nipped in the bud pretty fast if that does happen, in terms of like if a gay guy likes a straight guy or bi guy or queer guy. But anyway, so we went from there, and the book follows, like I said, these two best friends, but it's complicated by the straight guy was dating the gay guy's sister, and we start with them just breaking up, and their social group just kind of begins to like unravel from there. And what's fun too is like, you know, we brought in this artist, Jenny D. Fine. She is so good, and she really captures this like vibe that I wanted. You know, I think Omar brought a lot of great story elements, and then I was like vibe doctor, and I was like, yo, the book kind of needs to like feel like this. It needs to have this tone to it. Has this sort of aura, and yeah, and it's just really kind of about their misadventures, and you see that there is a sort of larger arc at play once you get to issue 3. I don't think you really see that in 2. Everything's still set to boil at the last part of issue 2, but you'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm anxious now to find out, because it ended on such a moment where you're like, okay, what the fuck's gonna happen next? But you said Friends. It kind of has Friends vibes, and I definitely see that. I'm a huge fan of Friends. I've probably seen every episode, I don't know, 20 to 30 times. I mean, I even got my 5-year-old daughter. She loves the show too, because it's on so much. How influential was that show in the genesis of this book? Like the way that the relationships are handled there and the situations. Was that a show that like you grew up? Was it a huge part of your life when you were younger?
Yeah. Well, it's the same as what you said was with your daughter. It's like it was always on for a really long time, and then I had I had like a best of DVD box set in college, and then I don't like it got on some streaming thing, and then I kind of was like, have I missed any episodes? And then I was going through them, and I was like, I've seen every episode. And what's funny is I thought like I had totally like the later seasons when things get kind of weird, like when Rachel and Joey try to happen, I thought I'd skip them because I thought they were like not good. And it's like, no, I've seen all of those episodes. I've seen all the Paul Rudd episodes. It's crazy. So it's just such a part of our language and sort of collective unconscious or whatever. And I just instantly like, oh, we have to recreate like when Monica puts a fucking turkey on her head. It was more like, how do we subvert these dynamics? You know, how do we take the Rachel character, the girl that you think everyone is supposed to love, the lovable goofball, and how do we make it so she messes up and you still like her? You know, I don't want to say what happens, but she does just like an undeniably bad thing in the second issue, when she does an undeniably bad thing in the first issue too. And it's not like a Walter White thing where it's like she's an anti-hero. She's just complicated. And you want to love her all the more when you realize why she's so complicated, rather than, you know, kind of doing the like Lena Dunham girls thing where it's like, oh, she's complicated and messy because that's how we are. It's like, no, I want to get to the meat of it. So it was just playing with those dynamics and kind of like subverting them. And, you know, also I think the thing that everyone makes fun of is like, it's like, why would Rachel be with Ross? He's such a downer. And, you know, I think it's like, we look at the Sam character and he is a downer, and it's like, well, maybe there's more to that. Maybe there's, I think, you know, now we're talking about mental health in a way that Friends never explored. And that's something that if we get more issues down the line, it's like, we really do want to talk about that. Like, I think, you know, male fragility is a real thing, and there's a way to talk about it without making anyone feel victimized or antagonized. And then, yeah, on top of that, there's like no gay characters in Friends. There's no, you know, like there's no there are barely any people of color, which, is more, you do that to reflect the times, not to like fill a quota. And
Right.
so I think our cast is more, it just reflects what mine and Omar's worlds look like. I mean, especially because we're both Middle Eastern, so like, how could our main characters not be Middle Eastern? That would.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you'll see. It's. So I think it's just more kind of, we saw what the space was, and we saw what was. I think more just saw what was missing and tried to fill that out, and also, we can use bad words and we can talk about sex in a really real way, which Friends couldn't do.
Mhm.
So stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, your characters in there are just they're hilarious, and it's like I could almost connect some of them to other personalities of friends I've either had in the past or friends I have now, which I think is really cool. And you're speaking on the diversity of the characters again. Like the cast is very diverse, both in look, both in like style of dress, everything. It's very unique in that respect. And was that always something? Was that always an important factor when coming up with this concept and coming out with the book? I know you said you and Omar are Middle Eastern, so obviously the main characters. But besides that, was that something that you felt like you wanted to have in your comic book?
I don't know. I think like what was just important was like, the most important thing was like, I think making like Lauren having these ambitions as a musician, and then not, and kind of having to, she has to become a bit more intentional with her thoughts. And also, I think I was just more into the idea of exploring like people doing things but not knowing why they're doing things, like when they're nuking their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in your 20s where you just nuke things and you don't understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So it was more of that, and I think anything else is just a byproduct of my training, or mine and Omar's backgrounds, upbringings, and all the weird little shit that's in our mind. But and I think the other thing too is just sort of like also making sure that we're aware of sort of certain pitfalls of representation, and how to, again, just how to subvert all of that, and how to give space for people to kind of do and be other things in books.
I know like you and Omar are doing the book to like how does that break down in terms of plot, dialogue, writing? How do you guys divvy that up, or the responsibilities?
It's such a mix and match. I did a book with my friend Daniel Friedman a few years ago called Burn the Orphanage, and that had a much more clear rhythm. Like we would talk about the book, outline it together, then I'd go draw it and do a dialogue pass, because I was like, well, I'm drawing it, so like I say how this thing runs. And then he would go and do like a massive rewrite, because like he was like, this doesn't reflect my thoughts at all. And with Omar and I, because it doesn't get to just all sit in my head, because we have Jenny drawing it, and Mick Struble, who I worked with on Little Depressed Boy, coloring it. We have other people heavily involved. So Omar and I like super chat about things in the beginning, and then like really thoroughly outline what happens together, and kind of also talk about what's important to each of us that happens in the issue. I
Mm-hmm.
think we both have characters that are like our babies, and then we have characters that we both mutually love. But and it's like reflective of who we are as people. Like he's really invested in making sure the Sam character, who's like the Ross or whatever, the straight guy, that he gets to do XYZ storytelling things with that character. And I'm very interested in Jack, who's the gay guy. Like I want to talk about, we both want to talk about modern dating
Mm-hmm.
with these characters. And then we both love Lauren, and we both love Annie, and we both love the side characters, Tim and Ash, like, and both kind of like, he's kind of also the Ash whisperer, like kind of knows that character better than I do. But that's the thing, is I think we both like 50-50 really like worked super hard on the first issue together. And I think then like I'd handle a rewrite, he'd handle a rewrite. Just depends on who's free and who's not
Okay.
busy. He wrote like the entire first draft of the second issue, and then I went and did like a polish, and then I think I think I did the entire first draft of the fourth issue just because there were certain things that I knew. I was like, I got to nail this scene. Like, I know exactly how to do it, and then he'd come in and give both feedback and rewrites. So it just depends, we've both handed the baton to each other and been like, just go gaily forward and, have at it. And I'll take a look and make sure it makes sense. Or that it tracks with what, so it's really cool and really weird. And I've never done this before. I've never done it so casually before.
Yeah, it's seamless because like I can't like see it's not disjointed at all. It all works very well. And I know that originally it was solicited as an ongoing, but I noticed now when after the pandemic and after things got reopened, it was resolicited as a miniseries. So is it ongoing? Is it a miniseries?
Well, I didn't realize it was originally solicited as an ongoing. So what happened was we were originally solicited, or we were originally given 5 issues,
Okay.
and also like industry secret, like all books are secretly miniseries until said otherwise. But Jenny's a very methodical, slow artist, so we knew we would need a break anyway, and we'd probably have to look at this as a series of miniseries or volumes or whatnot. But when the pandemic happened, we kind of had to reevaluate how to launch a slice of life series, and we talked with Eric Stevenson at Image about just what would be the best way to do this. And it felt like we needed to get the readers as much story possible, to get them as invested as quick as possible. So we just decided, okay, instead of 5 issues, let's do 4 issues. The work's been done, like the book has been done. So we took the 5 issues of story and then sort of separated it out across 4 issues. So now everyone's getting oversized issues. Every single one comes with tons of back matter material. So I think there's maybe like 2 ads in every 36-page book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have like backup strips that you haven't seen yet. My friend Colleen Green curated a playlist for the book that's in the back. Yeah, lots of there's unused covers that, we're putting in the back as well, and some process stuff. So it goes back to like, okay, we need to make every issue feel really special. And it goes back to bullets. You got to make these, you got to find the target. You only got a few bullets and you got to hit right. And so that's why we kind of decided to go for larger single issues, get in and out quicker, get people in love quicker, and then take it from there. And so, yeah, there will be more if the book does well, but the first arc has always been the same ending.
Okay.
Like I'm drawing most of the last issue, because there's a very specific shift that sort of, again, we need to give Jenny time to like recover and get her back on the book if there's more. But yeah, hopefully there'll be at least another book, because Omar and I have a few more stories to tell.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to that. And then besides being an awesome writer, a fantastic artist, like you said, you also were an editor. So you've seen so much different aspects of what this industry is, and you even interned at Top Gun and stuff like that. I was wondering, in your opinion, what do you think, or what do you want to see more of in order for the industry to continue to grow and be more inclusive?
I just think everyone should do everyone else's job and see how hard everyone else's job is. That I try to meet every deadline, even if it's an inconvenience in my life, because I know that to give the editor one less thing to worry about is a gift. That they won't even realize. It's just, for them to not worry about something is a gift. I think that, it's really, really hard. I understand how hard it is to compensate people what they're worth, but I think compensating editors and marketing departments, or having really, really invested marketing people is great. I think because I've been with Image on and off for almost a decade now, about 8 years or 9 years, and I've seen them go through kind of building up a marketing department, you know, like between the rise of The Walking Dead and Saga, like they really changed their marketing, you know, layout, for lack of a better term, and they added Jeff Boyson, and Kat Salazar is killing it. And I think that, you know, these people work so hard, and sometimes creators don't even see how hard they're working, and so, but that's the thing, is you need those people there dealing with the book market, coming up with new ways to get people to read the books, coming up with ways to motivate and incentivize retailers. I think, you know, retailer summits are huge too. Like, I know a lot of publishers during Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con will have these little retailer breakfasts. I think everyone just needs to kind of be communicating with each other and understanding what everyone wants. You don't have to listen to everybody, you know. I think having a clear point of view is also very important, but having an awareness of what is going on with other people super helps. But you know, it's hard. It's hard because I know that, you know, what Collector's Paradise needs is different than what Secret Headquarters and Silver Lake needs. Like, but at the end of the day, I think just kind of empowering the right people and giving them the credit they deserve is a huge step, you know. And I think that's why First Second does so well, is they have amazing editors who really, you know, put their heart and souls into these books and really guide creators towards the finish line.
That's the first time I've ever heard anybody talk about the people behind the scenes, and I've asked that question in a similar fashion, or maybe I've reworded it. But that is interesting that you say that. I do think that especially editors are one of the unsung heroes in comic books. I definitely tend to follow editors to projects as much as I follow creators, because I pay attention to everybody that's a part of a book. If I love it, I want to know every single person and what they did to help bring that project to life. So that's awesome answer. But before we get out of here, I do want to ask if there's any other projects that you have in the works that you can maybe talk about or tease.
Yeah, well, I'll say that like, it's crazy. I like worked on this like a year ago, and it finally came out. I wrote a Haunted Mansion graphic novel for IDW, and it's scary. It's sold out in less than a week. It's out of print. And so I love talking about that because it's the first time it's happened to me. I mean, like, Iceman's out of print, but Iceman took, you know, like 18 months to get out of print. But it's crazy that within a week I've sold out of something.
Yeah.
So it's still available digitally, and, you know, I want to kind of encourage people to talk about it some more so we can get a second printing. If there isn't one already in the works, I don't know. But it's cool. I did that. That's rad. I'm joking about this, but I want to say it as much as possible, so I actually do it. I'm bored, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a spoken word album, but it's not. Don't worry, it's not serious. It's like a parody of Lana Del Rey's spoken word album. But I'm like, oh, I'll just do it. I've got nothing else to do. So I think that's gonna be really fun and really stupid. And is there anything else going on? I just finished this series, Read Only Memories, also with IDW, that was based off the sort of fan favorite video game of the same name, 2064 Read Only Memories. And that book is so special to me. And it kind of sucks that it started wrapping up around COVID because, you know, we decided to stall out the collected edition, you know, for sort of when it's a better time. And, you know, there's no fanfare for the final issue. But I love that book, and all 4 issues are out. And I worked with a really great artist on that one, Stefano Simeone. And you don't have to have played the game to get what it's about. It's a neo-noir fucking steampunk book. It's cool. Is it steampunk? No, I'm like, is it post-punk, steampunk? I can't remember the words anymore. But yeah, just random little stuff like that.
Cool.
And then shit I really can't talk about.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll still keep a lookout for all that stuff. And before we get out of here, can you just share some plugs where we can find you online? And I'll also throw those links down below.
Yeah, just the great thing about having my name is I get to own it all over social media. So it's Sina Grace at Sina Grace, SinaGrace.com, SinaGrace.BigCartel, all that crap. And yeah, That's yeah. Twitter and Instagram are my jams. I don't have a TikTok. I don't want to have a TikTok. So yeah, that's me.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this again. And for everybody watching, listening, I will throw those links down below again. And make sure you go pick up Getting It Together out in October from Image Comics.
Great. And my dog says hey.
Cool. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.